There's something that's really interesting that happens on Amazon. Some of the books that are selling extremely well aren't created by big publishers or big brands. They're not created by well-known authors or celebrities, and they're not part of long established brands that have been around for years and years. Instead, they're coming from small, self-published creators who have built simple, thoughtful products that people genuinely enjoy. And what makes this even more interesting is how quickly some of these brands have grown. They haven't spent years building a brand. They haven't released hundreds of books, yet they are already creating books that stand out and attract repeat buyers. So in this video, I want to take you inside 2 self-published brands that are doing this really well. We're going to look at their books very, very closely, their style, and the decisions that they're making. And by the end, hopefully you will start to see how achievable this really is. Now, if you are new here, my name is Caroline. I'm a self-publisher who has been creating and selling books on Amazon KDP for over 7 years. And on this channel, I show you how to do the same. There are some types of books that just sit on Amazon year after year, consistently selling, consistently growing, and consistently creating real income for the people publishing them. They're not complicated books. They're not 300-page manuscripts. They're not written by anybody famous. They're simple, thoughtful, well-designed books that people just enjoy using. And coloring books are one of the best examples of this. If you walk into any bookstore, you see coloring books. If you scroll through Amazon, you see them. If you look at what people buy for gifts, holidays, for quiet time, for stress relief, for children, for adults, for themselves, coloring books show up again and again. And this isn't something new. Coloring books have been selling for decades. They were popular long before self-publishing existed. They were popular long before Amazon, and they continue to sell today in big numbers across all different types of customers. And one of the most interesting things about coloring books is that they work beautifully with self-publishing. They don't need you to put up with long writing sessions. They don't need complicated storytelling. They're visual, they're creative, and they're built around simple ideas that can be expanded into full series and full brands. This is why coloring books has become one of the most reliable niches in low and medium content book publishing. Not because they're trending right now or they're just a fad, but because they have always had that demand, and that demand still continues today. Today, I want to take you inside of 2 self-published brands that are doing very well right now in the coloring book space. And these are not large publishing companies. They're not brands that have been around for years. They're self-published creators like you and me who have just built cohesive, thoughtful coloring book brands that are clearly resonating with buyers. We're going to spend time looking at their books, their style, their branding, the decisions that they're making. And at the end, we'll talk about how you can take what they're doing and apply it in your own way. Because once you see how these brands are structured, something starts to become very clear. These are intentional collections. They're brands, and this is where the real opportunity sits for you. Before we do dive deep into the brands, it helps to just step back for a second and look at why coloring books continue to perform so well year after year. Coloring books are simple, but they feel a real purpose. People use them to relax. Parents buy them for quiet time for their kids. Adults buy them to unwind. They're affordable, they're giftable, and they're easy to pick up again and again. They also encourage repeat purchases. Someone who enjoys one coloring book usually goes back to buy more. I know myself, I can go and look on my bookshelf and I can see at least 10 different coloring books. If customers enjoy their style, they'll go back and look for more from the same creator. And this is where branding becomes really powerful, because when someone connects with a style or aesthetic, they want more of it. Another important piece is that coloring books are highly visual. This makes them stand out in the search results. A strong cover style and a clear theme can make a really big difference. You're not relying on a long description to explain the book. People can see what they're getting pretty much straight away. This is also why small creators can do well in this space. You don't need a large audience to begin. You don't need years of publishing or writing experience. You just need a thoughtful concept, a clear style, and a willingness to build gradually. And this brings us to the first brand that I want to look at, Amelia Green. Is this a pen name? Probably. Most people who self-publish on Amazon KDP use pen names and brand names. This is a fairly newish brand. They only have 4 books published, but they are building something. So let's take a look at the books that they do have published currently. When you take a look at this storefront, the first thing that stands out is consistency. The covers feel similar and connected. The style feels cohesive. There's a clear aesthetic running through the entire series. But first, let's take a look at how much these books are making each month. I went through the 4 of their books, looked at the bestseller rank, and then we were able to use that to estimate how many books are selling each month and how much the royalties are based on that. So when I calculated that from those 4 books, they're estimated to be selling around 1,000 books, and that will bring in approximately $4,000 in royalties per month. So hopefully you can see, even by just having a few books within a series that are all cohesive and follow the same style that's working, you can very quickly build up a nice income. This person does not have one single book that's bringing in tens of thousands of dollars each month, but each of these books is doing pretty good. And then imagine having 50 of these books or 100 of these books, making a small amount of royalties each month. It all adds up. Now, back to the actual books and how they got them to this point. These are cozy girl style of coloring books, and this cozy theme is having a real moment at the moment. We'll take a look inside and we can see what these coloring pages look like. Unfortunately, we can only see the back cover, but they're quite simple. They're this kind of style that's popular at the moment where they're not childish, but they are simple. For the people who don't like really, really detailed coloring book pages, they've got soft, relaxed scenes. They've got comfortable settings with gentle, calming themes. There's something very inviting about them. When you do scroll through the books, you'll notice that they're not wildly different from each other. Instead, they're building on a similar concept. This is important because it shows that the self-publisher is not trying to reinvent the idea each time. They're expanding within a style that works. And this is something that experienced self-publishers do. When a style resonates, they continue developing it. They introduce new themes, new settings, new variations, but they keep that core aesthetic intact. You can also see that the covers use similar color palettes and similar fonts, and this creates brand recognition. When someone sees one of these books, they begin to recognize the style. Over time, this builds familiarity, and familiarity leads to trust. And look closer at the titles. You can see that they're just very straightforward and descriptive. They clearly communicate the theme and the mood of the book, and that helps customers quickly understand what they are getting. And an interesting detail is the number of books that I mentioned earlier. This is not a brand with hundreds of titles. Instead, it appears to be a focused collection that has grown gradually. And that's encouraging because it shows that success does not require an enormous series or catalog of books. When you look at the reviews, you start to see what people appreciate. Many of them mention the relaxing nature of the illustrations. Others mention the consistency of the style, and some mention that they are collecting multiple books from the same creator. And that is exactly what a strong coloring book brand aims for. Not just one purchase, but repeat buyers who enjoy the experience and want more. So how are they getting these kinds of sales? They are active on social media, particularly on TikTok, which has been a massive contributor to a lot of coloring books selling really well on Amazon. It is still probably the best strategy you can do with a coloring book brand right now. Now, are they running Amazon ads? Yes, they are, which is just boosting what is already working for them by building up a fan base over on TikTok. Okay, let's take a look at the second brand, Jeanette Veronica. This brand is a little bit bigger, but it's also capitalizing on the cozy girl theme like the first brand that we've just looked at, Amelia Green. Scrolling through their books, the first thing you'll notice is consistency. The covers feel cohesive, the illustrations have a recognizable style, and there's a clear identity. This brand also leans into cozy, calming themes. The illustrations feel approachable. They're detailed enough to be engaging, but simple enough to be relaxing. When you scroll through the books, you'll see a similar approach to the first brand. Multiple books built around a consistent aesthetic. Variations in themes, but continuity in style. And that's important because it reinforces the idea that success in coloring books often comes from a recognizable look. So let's look at how many books and how much royalties this self-publisher is making, because I think it'll be really interesting to see the difference between building a brand and only having a few books like Amelia Green and a brand like this that has built up to 50 or 100 books. I'm not going to look at every single book they have because they do have close to 100 books. I'll look at maybe 10 of their top selling books and we'll work out how much they could be making from, let's say, around 10% of their catalog. So I went through their top 10 books, looked at at the bestseller ranks, which they have fantastic bestseller ranks, which helped me estimate how many books they're selling each month, which then helped me work out what the royalties are each month. So out of the 10 books I looked at from their catalog, they sell around 5,300 books, and they bring in royalties estimated to be around $20,400 each month. And just remember, that is from only 10 of their books, and they have close to 100 books. So the actual amount that they are making could be a lot higher than that. But when we look at how they did this, they found a style that worked and just kept expanding on it and creating more books with that style and that theme. And look what consistency has done for them. You'll also notice that the books feel easy enough. They're not overly complicated, and this makes them appealing to a wide audience. Some buyers prefer intricate designs, but many at the moment especially prefer simpler, calming illustrations that they can enjoy without feeling overwhelmed. And looking at the reviews, again, you see similar feedback. Buyers appreciate the relaxing nature, the cohesive style, the enjoyable themes. Some mention buying multiple books. Now, this brand is also active on social media, particularly on TikTok, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a big reason why coloring books get so big on Amazon. If you sell coloring books and you don't promote them on TikTok, you should do that immediately. Now, are they running Amazon ads? I can't actually see any Amazon ads, so they may only be relying on free marketing like TikTok, which is a great strategy. And you don't always have to run paid ads to get really good book sales. It does help boost what's already working, but it isn't necessary if you don't want to have the budget for paid advertising. So when we start to compare both of these brands, we see some patterns. Both have cohesive branding, both build series around a style rather than just random one-off books. Both focus on a clear aesthetic, and both create variations with a consistent style. And these are not accidental choices, they're thoughtful decisions that help build a recognizable brand. Another important point that I do like to mention is that neither of these brands have been around forever. These are relatively newer, self-published creators, and that is encouraging because it shows that there is still space for new voices and new styles and new brands. Coloring books are not limited to a handful of established publishers or big brands like Coco Wyo. New creators continue to enter the space and this niche and build successful brands. This is one of the reasons that coloring books just will always remain such a compelling niche. The barrier to entry is manageable, but the potential for growth is very significant. If you were to take inspiration from these brands, you would start by thinking about style. What kind of aesthetic do you enjoy? Cozy scenes, cute animals, calming interiors, seasonal themes. Once you choose a direction, you begin building within that space, and then you can start thinking about consistency. Covers that feel connected and similar. Titles that align with each other. Illustrations within the book that share a recognizable feel. Then you build gradually. One book becomes two books become three, and over time a brand begins to form and take shape. And this process doesn't need to be rushed. It really does benefit from thoughtful development, thoughtful strategy. Each book adds to the collection and just strengthens the brand. When you look at these two brands, you see something pretty reassuring. They're not complicated business models. They're just simple brands built with consistency and care. And this is what makes coloring books such a great niche that keeps drawing self-publishers to it. They allow creativity, but they also reward structure. They encourage branding, but they don't need big teams of people to create them. Most importantly, they create products that people genuinely enjoy using. And when you combine those elements, you can start to see why coloring books have been such a strong niche for so long and why new self-publishers continue to find success within them. If you are considering entering the coloring book niche, these brands offer a really thoughtful starting point, not to copy them, but to understand how cohesive style, gradual growth, and consistent branding can come together to build something meaningful. Because when you look at these books together, you're not just seeing individual coloring books, you're seeing the early stages of brands that are growing, they're resonating, and really connecting with Amazon's customers. And that is where the real opportunity lies. Now, if you did enjoy this video, YouTube thinks that you might like these ones too, so please go check them out to learn more about self-publishing your own low and medium content books on Amazon KDP. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.